This animated WHO manual has been produced by the National Poison Center, University Science Malaysia, in conjunction with the International Pesticide Application Research Centre, Imperial College, London. Section 1. Introduction. One of the ways of controlling insect vectors of human diseases such as malaria and Chagas disease is to apply an insecticide spray to the walls inside houses. The aim is that any vector resting on the residual deposit of insecticide on the surface of walls will die before transmitting the disease. Houses in rural and urban areas will differ in size and shape and be constructed with different materials such as mud, wooden planks, and brick. But in each case, a spray is applied to the surface of the inside walls. This animated version of a WHO manual is to show the correct way to apply a residual insecticide to the indoor surfaces on which insect vectors may rest. Section 2. Safety. The persons handling and applying insecticides must observe safety precautions, otherwise they may be exposed to the insecticides when opening the package, when mixing insecticide in water for spray, when spraying the insecticide, especially in high places. The operator should wear a protective hat and a face shield or goggles. Safety precautions. Do not eat, drink, or smoke while working. Wash your hands and face with soap and water after spraying and before eating, smoking, or drinking. Shower or bathe at the end of every day's work and change into clean clothes. Wash your overalls and other protective clothing at the end of every working day in soap and water and keep them separate from the rest of the family's clothes. If the insecticide touches your skin, wash off immediately with soap and water. Change your clothes immediately if they become contaminated with insecticides. Inform your supervisor immediately if you feel unwell. Section 3. Protective clothing and equipment. The person spraying is most exposed to the insecticide by absorption through the skin, by inhalation through the nose and into the lungs, and through the mouth. The operator must therefore be protected while preparing and spraying the insecticide. Specific protective clothing and equipment must be worn in accordance with the safety instructions on the product label. The operator should wear an overall with long sleeves. Some overalls have an elasticated cuff to make sure spray does not get on the operator's arm. A hat protects the head, face, and neck from the spray. Adding a cover at the back of the head to protect the neck is good. Goggles or a face shield protects the eyes against spray droplets. A face mask can be worn to protect the nose and mouth from droplets landing on the face. Rubber gloves protect the hands. Note: the overall sleeve should cover the cuff of the glove. Boots. The trouser leg should cover the top of the boots. Section 4. Preparation. The household. Plans to provide indoor residual spraying in the area should be discussed with the local chief. When it is agreed by the chief to do indoor residual spraying in his area, a leaflet is distributed to inform householders in advance when their house will be sprayed. Occupants must leave houses before spraying. Rooms occupied by sick people who cannot be moved must not be sprayed. Remove all household items, including water containers, food, cooking utensils, and toys from the house. Move and cover or remove any furniture to allow easy access for spraying walls. Items that cannot be removed should be well covered. Cage or tether pets and domestic animals away from the house. Section 5. Preparation. Equipment. When implementing indoor residual spraying, it is essential that sprayers that meet WHO specifications are purchased. Spraying of walls is normally done with a compression sprayer, as the equipment does not require pumping while spraying. The parts of the sprayer are now shown. The tank is fitted with a shoulder strap. A lid covers the tank opening where it is filled with the spray. There is a pump to pressurize the tank. The pump is manually operated by the handle. A pressure gauge to indicate the tank pressure. A hose to connect the tank to the spray lance. A lance fitted with a trigger valve. Inside the trigger is a strainer, a nozzle, and a control flow valve at the end of the lance. A footrest is provided to hold the tank steady while pumping. Sprayer with a 10-liter tank size filled with 7.5 liters of water and fitted with a constant flow valve are recommended. Although larger tank sizes are available, they are heavier to carry. Before starting a spray operation, the equipment must be checked. Faulty sprayers may result in poor control or overtreatment. Examine the sprayer visually to ensure that all parts are present, assembled correctly, and in good working order. Sprayer tank, shoulder strap, lid, pump, pressure gauge, lance, strainer, hose, nozzle, trigger on-off valve, footrest. Note: the sprayer should be fitted with a control flow valve, CFV. The recommended valve operates at either 1.5 or 2 bar and gives a constant output at the nozzle until the tank pressure is below the stated pressure of the CFV. Spraying will then stop, indicating that the operator must repressurize the tank. Without a CFV, the output at the nozzle decreases as the pressure in the tank drops. By adding the CFV, the pressure at the nozzle remains the same until the tank pressure is too low to open the valve. The CFV must be fitted between the tank outlet and the nozzle. Usually, it is fitted next to the nozzle. Fit the valve by first removing the nozzle tip and cap. Fit a washer, if not present, into the end of the CFV that is screwed to the end of the lance. Then, with another washer, if necessary, screw back the nozzle body, tip, and cap onto the CFV. The output of nozzles should be checked regularly, especially where water may contain sand or other particles, as these particles will increase the size of the opening in the nozzle tip. The recommended nozzle for indoor residual spraying is an 8002E fan nozzle that has an output of 550 mm per minute with the 1.5 bar control flow valve. Some manufacturers have suggested using an 8001 nozzle to reduce the spray volume, but the narrower, small opening is more likely to block. It is not always practical to have spare nozzles in the field, and blockages in nozzles are regular occurrence. Ways to clean a blockage from a nozzle in the field is to place it on the pressure release valve on the pump and let the pressure blow the nozzle clean, or use a soft piece of grass. The correct recommendation is to replace the nozzle and soak the clogged nozzle in water in a clean pan. When spraying the inside of the roof that does not have a ceiling, it is usual to have an additional length of lance. The nozzle and CFV are unscrewed from the lance. The extra straight lance is screwed on the lance and the nozzle, and CFV screwed to the end of the lengthened lance. This allows spray to be applied higher on the inside of the roof. Before using an insecticide, use clean water to ensure that the equipment operates properly and does not leak. Wear protective clothing. To check that the sprayer works properly, first, pour water into the tank. The tank should be filled no higher than the maximum level, approximately 3/4 full. Fit the lid and lock it in position by turning the lid handle. Operate the pump using both hands and with foot on the footrest. Pump until the tank pressure is 4 bar, 58 pounds per square inch. Every full stroke gives about 1 pound per square inch. Note, 1 bar equals 100 millibar equals 14.5 pound per square inch equals 100 kilopascals. Check that the tank is holding pressure. Listen for the hissing sound of escaping air. Does the pressure gauge show an increase in pressure as you pump? Check to make sure there are no leaks along the lance and hose, especially where the hose joins the tank and trigger on-off valve. Operate the trigger on-off valve to make sure that spray is emitted from the nozzle. Check the spray pattern from the nozzle by spraying a dry wall surface. Look to see that the spraying pattern is even and without streaks. Ensure that the nozzle does not drip when the trigger on-off valve is released. Calibrate the nozzle with water in the tank. Pump until the tank pressure is 4 bar, 58 pounds per square inch. Open the trigger on-off valve for 1 minute. Collect the discharge and measure the amount in a measuring jug. Empty the jug. Discharge for a further minute and measure the amount. Repeat for a third discharge. Calculate the average of the 3 1-minute measurements. Before starting a spray operation, the equipment must be checked. Faulty sprayers may result in poor control or overtreatment. Examine the sprayer visually to ensure that all parts are present, assembled correctly, and in good working order. Note, the dose of active ingredient of the insecticide in the spray has to be adjusted to ensure the correct dose per square meter. If the nozzle is clogged, the opening in the nozzle is very small and must not be damaged. Clogged nozzles should be put in a container and immersed in water for several hours before the blockage is removed with a very soft toothbrush. Never clean a nozzle with a hard pin or piece of wire, and never put a nozzle to your mouth to blow through it. Having checked the sprayer, depressurize by rotating the lid handle so that it stops on top of the pressure release button valve on top of the lid. During this process, hold the handle to prevent the lid from falling into the tank. Empty the clean water you have used for testing the sprayer. Section 6. Mixing, handling, and spraying techniques. Prepare the insecticide spray according to the manufacturer's instruction. The insecticide, if supplied in a sachet for a single tank load, may be added directly to the water in the tank. This formulation mixes readily with water and reduces the exposure of the operator associated with mixing in a separate container. Alternatively, the correct quantity of insecticide may be mixed in a bucket and then poured into the tank. When the sprayer has been filled with water to the maximum level indicated on the tank, fit the lid of the tank and pump the sprayer until the pressure gauge shows 4 bar, 58 pounds per square inch. Every full stroke gives about 1 pound per square inch. About 58 full strokes are required to reach working pressure. When the tank has been pressurized, mix the content of the tank thoroughly by shaking the tank before starting to spray. Apply spray in vertical swaths 75 centimeters wide with an overlap of 5 centimeters. Spray from roof to floor using a downward motion to complete one swath. Step sideways and spray upward from floor to roof. To ensure the correct swath width, keep the spray tip about 45 cm from the wall. Lean forward as you spray from top of the wall and move back as you bring the nozzle downwards. Continue the procedure, moving in a clockwise direction until spraying of the room is completed. Time your spray speed to cover 1 meter every 2.2 seconds. That is 4.5 seconds for a 2-meter high wall. Timing may be aided by mentally counting 1001, 1002, 1003, and so forth. Adjust the mental counting procedure according to the local language. If spraying stops because of a blockage in the nozzle, unscrew the nozzle cap, remove the blocked nozzle, and replace with a new one. Do not let spray drip onto the floor. When the CFV stops the spraying, repressurize the tank to 4 bars. After spraying has been completed for the day, the spray operator returns to the central location where spray operations are organized and where tanks are emptied and cleaned. Section 7. Procedures after spraying. Advise the occupants to stay outside the house until the spray is dry. Instruct the householder to sweep or mop the floor before children or pets are allowed to re-enter. Instruct the householder not to clean the sprayed surfaces. Owners of treated houses should not replaster walls after the walls have been sprayed. Walls should not be wiped or replastered for at least 6 months after spraying. Section 8. Disposal of remains of insecticides and empty packaging. It is important that the environment is not exposed to insecticides from washing the sprayer or from used containers. It is important to clean the sprayer thoroughly after each day's use and before it is stored. Any insecticide spray left at the end of the day should be collected and carefully kept in clearly marked containers with tightly fitted lids. This rinsate should be used to dilute the next day's tank loads or disposed properly by the supervisor. Rinsate is the mixture of water that has been contaminated with low concentrations of pesticide products. If rinsate cannot be stored for future use, spray the rinsate on the outer walls of the last house. Never pour the remaining insecticide into rivers, pools, or drinking water sources. Decontaminate containers where possible. For glass, plastic, or metal containers, this can be achieved by triple rinsing. That is, part filling the empty container with water 3 times and emptying into a sprayer for the next application. All empty packaging should be returned to the supervisor for safe disposal according to national guidelines. Never reuse empty insecticide containers. Section 9. Maintenance of equipment. Certain parts of the sprayer will become worn as the sprayer is used, so the sprayer should be checked regularly. First, if the tank is pressurized, it will have to be depressurized so that the sprayer can be taken apart safely. Any worn parts can then be replaced. When the sprayer has been depressurized, the tank can be cleaned by filling it half full with water. Replace the lid. Pressurize the tank slightly and then shake it to ensure all the inside surfaces are washed. Pump again so that the pressure is up to 2.5 bar. And spray the water through the nozzle so that the hose, trigger valve, lance, CFV, and nozzle are clean. Depressurize the tank and pour out any remaining liquid into a container, as it can be used for spraying during the next day. To clean the strainer inside the trigger valve, disconnect the trigger valve from the hose and unscrew the trigger on-off valve handle. The strainer can then be washed. Reassemble the trigger valve with the clean strainer. Remove the nozzle tip and wash. Refit the nozzle. Clean the outside of the tank. With the lid open, turn the tank upside down, open the on-off valve, and let all the water drain out of the hose and lance. Ensure the lance is parked to protect the nozzle when not in use. When storing the sprayer for a long period, hang it upside down with the lid open to allow air circulation. Allow lance to hang from the D-ring on the tank with the trigger valve cap open. Section 10. Troubleshooting. On some occasions, the sprayer may not work as expected. If the pump fails to pressurize the tank, remove the pump plunger from the sprayer by loosening the nut holding the pump on the top of the tank. Insert a gloved hand into the tank and hold the pump cylinder. Unscrew the cap holding the pump and pull the plunger from the tank. Remove the pump cylinder from inside the tank. If the leather pump plunger cup is dry, Soften it by rubbing in some clean engine oil. If it is damaged and needs replacing, unscrew the disc holding the plunger cap and replace. The plunger needs to be oiled weekly, not only when pump is checked during routine maintenance. Reassemble the pump. Check the gasket is in place on the pump cylinder. Then hold the pump cylinder inside the tank with threaded party through opening in the top of the tank. Insert the pump plunger into the cylinder. Turn the plunger cap counterclockwise on the cylinder to ensure the threads match. Then screw the cap on and tighten. Check the relief valve is seated correctly and air does not escape until maximum pressure is reached. If the tank fails to hold pressure, check the rubber seal on the lid and replace if necessary. Check the hose connections to the tank are tight. Check the relief valve is seated correctly to avoid loss of pressure. If the sprayer does not shut off, check the trigger on-off valve. Depressurize the tank. Disconnect the trigger valve from the hose. Take the filter out of the handle. Unscrew the remaining assembly to see if spring and washers need to be cleaned or replaced. Section 11. Preparation of the spray. The insecticide is formulated as a powder or liquid which may be packaged as a sachet, tablet, or in a container. These formulations may be packaged to contain the right amount of insecticide for an individual tank load of 8 or 10 liters. Check the label of each product to ensure the correct dilution. Section 12. Storing the insecticide. Insecticides needs to be stored in a cool, dark store that can be securely locked. Records need to be kept of insecticide stock from delivery to spraying. Section 13. Record keeping. Record keeping is one of the most important factors in any indoor residual spraying program. For example, record keeping of insecticide stock from delivery to spraying, and also record keeping of structures sprayed and individual performance. It is hoped that this video has provided you with all the information you need to do indoor residual spraying, but you will need to practice spray wall surfaces to achieve good distribution of spray. Good luck with your work on this important method of controlling mosquitoes.